Hey guys, this is Joseph Lucero, and today what we're going to talk about are powerlifting belts. We're going to talk about how do I use them, their effectiveness, and if they're going to make you stronger and a better athlete today. So one of the first things is, what is a powerlifting belt? So as you can tell right here, a powerlifting belt is a highly durable piece of equipment used to build intra-abdominal pressure. So what that does right there is it helps keep your spine up, it keeps it tall, and it keeps you in an advantageous position to be a much more effective athlete. What's interesting too is the build of these powerlifting belts is so tough, they're so thick, that they should be able to help any athlete who is elite, advanced, and wants to make sure that their body is in the best position to be super successful. So one big question is, when should I use a powerlifting belt? Well, you should use a powerlifting belt for 3 occasions. You should use them for heavy compound movements, and in powerlifting, we know what those heavy compounds are: the squat, the bench, the deadlift. We should use them for high intense training. So more times than not, I advocate for people to use a belt at 80% or above that threshold of their 1 rep max. And I also would advocate for people to use a powerlifting belt for injury prevention. So the next thing we need to talk about is, how do I use this powerlifting belt? Well, with this Unleash 10 millimeter 4-inch lever belt from Iron Bull, how I use it, okay, is placement is key. So when you feel your hip joint, you want to make sure that the belt is just above the hip joint. If you put this sucker low, like below your belly button, it's not going to support your spine in the area that you need it the most. You got to lift this sucker up, almost cover your belly button, or maybe the belly button's up below, but more importantly, you got to be above that hip joint to make sure that you're secure. Now the next thing you want to do is make sure that the tightness is at a great level. So what I would say is, you want to make sure that when you pull the lever in, that it's tight enough, but you can still do adjustments. Like I can slide it down, I can slide it up, so I can still make some movements, and I can still have a casual conversation. Now, the third way to make sure this belt's being worked is you want to have a good brace. So I'm going to take this lever off for a second. When people lift, especially like on a squat, they'll shrug their shoulders up and then do their lifting. But the problem is this: when you shrug and you're not breathing through your stomach, you're not building a lot of pressure. So I put this belt on just above the hip bone, all right? I got a tightness to where I can still move it around. If I was to breathe through my shoulders, my core is gonna stay in the same position it was before. But if you zoom in and look at this part, and I breathe through my stomach, you're seeing all of my stomach push out as far as possible, and that builds that intra-abdominal pressure, so that when I do perform my lift, my lumbar and thoracic region of my spine will stay upright, so I can maintain good positioning and having a safer lift. Okay. So how do you know which belt to choose for yourself? Well, it's going to depend on a few things. Things like material, is it leather, synthetic? It's also going to depend on the thickness of the belt. Is it 10 millimeters, 13 millimeters? That depends on how strong you want the belt to be, on how strong you are in general. But another thing too is you want to consider the different types of buckling. So with this belt, the buckle is a lever. As you saw in the previous video, you even saw it right here, it slides. So when I set this thing up, I pull the lever, it gets my tightness the exact way every time, and then to pull it off, I just take off the clip. Now, prong belts are super helpful too, but one of the toughest and the most frustrating things about those is you gotta like maneuver it, pull the prongs in, and then you have to pull the belt out even tighter to get the prongs out. And that just makes it a very frustrating situation, especially after a heavy lift. So I definitely recommend these lever belts if possible. So I mentioned earlier, 10 millimeter or 13 millimeter belts. The thicker it is, so 13 millimeter, the stronger it's going to be. Okay, it's going to have a lot of power to push against you when you have that big brace. A 10 millimeter might be a little bit more flexible and a little bit easier to use, so there's a little bit more comfort with it. That might be better for like dynamic movement if you're strongman versus powerlifter, if you will. And then, like I mentioned before, you want to really embrace a heavy material, a leather branded belt, so that you know that it's going to last a long time, and this is a heavy investment that'll take you on many journeys of awesome strength and gains. within a big brace is going to build so much pressure in the spine to keep it upright, to keep you out of a bad position to have an injury. And for this video, to demonstrate some of the ways that the powerlifting belt is going to be helpful, we're going to talk about the Iron Bull Unleash 10 millimeter 4-inch lever belt that is supplied to give you the most tough, intense workout in order to be successful with heavy strength lifting.